Welcome back to Men and the City from Cartagena, Colombia, which is a beautiful location. If you haven't been down here, I strongly recommend that you come. I've got a special video today for you guys. It's something a little bit different. It's an interview with a good friend of mine and crypto analyst named Alex Benfield. Now, Alex and I are going to talk about recent events in the Middle East. We're going to talk about how that affects crypto markets and the broader macro economy. Alex and some others and myself have been discussing macro and related topics for the better part of 3 years now. He's somebody I think has a lot to say on these matters, so I hope you get a lot out of the discussion. Alex is going to say a little bit about himself, and then we're going to kick off the video.
Hey everybody, it's Alex Benfield here, reporting from beautiful Cartagena, Colombia. As Cameron said, we're going to be discussing the intersection of crypto, macro, and geopolitics, specifically any trading opportunities that might be popping up due to what's going on here in the short term. This is going on to my third cycle in the cryptocurrency markets. I've been investing since 2017, which means I've got some experience navigating tumultuous times like we have right now. So again, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video.
Welcome back to Men and the City. In today's video, as I mentioned in the intro, we're going to talk about war, geopolitics, and crypto. So I think this is going to be an exciting and informative session for you. And as you can see, to my right, your left, is Alex Benfield, who is a crypto analyst and a good friend of mine, somebody that I've corresponded with for a number of years now. So I look forward to chatting with him about what's happening in financial markets and specifically in crypto. So what I'd like to do, Alex, is begin sort of with myself in the sense that it's been my experience that everybody has a crypto story. I sort of discovered crypto when I was traveling in Asia, and I came across some interesting people in Thailand who were Ethereum engineers and developers and so forth, and they kind of red-pilled me, orange-pilled me, what have you, on Bitcoin as much as Ethereum. So that was the genesis of my crypto experience. What is your crypto story?
Hey, morning. Happy to be here. So I think you're right. Everybody does kind of have an interesting story of how they got into crypto. Similar to yours, my story has to do with Ethereum. I had heard about Bitcoin when I was in college at the University of Michigan, probably back in about 2013, 2014 was the first time I heard about it, and I wrote it off.
Why did you write it off?
Well, it was actually selfish reason. So we were in an entrepreneurship class where you needed to pitch an idea, a business model to work on for a semester. And my model was just like a parking app that you could pay for parking on campus.
Yeah.
Simple stuff, but it was solving a problem that was bugging everybody. Everybody got tickets at Michigan, it was awful. And somebody else in the class was pitching a Bitcoin wallet or Bitcoin exchange, couldn't really remember at the time, but essentially an app that had to do with receiving Bitcoin rewards. And everybody laughed that off as magic internet money, and it was a dumb idea.
Yeah.
And guess whose idea we went with? Pay for parking app. So that was bad, missed a shot there. And then I think I heard about Bitcoin next, again, probably about 2016. I was like, wow, I can't believe this is still around.
Yeah.
But again, didn't pay too much attention to it until 2017. I'm sitting at my desk and I stumble on an article about Bitcoin. At that point, I'm like, okay, third time's a charm. I've been saying a lot about this over the years. Let me take a look into it. It must be more than just a little fad that I had written off. Mm-hmm. So that started a little bit of a research rabbit hole for me, and quickly I found out about Ethereum. At that point, I was hooked. I kind of figured out there's a lot more to crypto than just, coins on the internet.
Yeah. And
I started researching everything about Bitcoin, blockchain, Ethereum, what can be done through smart contracts. And again, this is 2017, so back then it was all potential.
So you did Michael Saylor's 10,000 hours or whatever he demands people do before they invest in Bitcoin and get into crypto, that sort of thing?
No, I did not waste 10,000 hours before I started investing. I probably started investing after 100, but I will say I probably put in about 1,000 hours of research in the first 2 months.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So you dug into the weeds.
I'm rabbit hole, deep in the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
This was the only thing interesting me or exciting me in my life at that point in time.
Yeah.
So I was immediately hooked, researching just about everything I could. Everybody realized that I was kind of the kid that knew about crypto, so they started asking me questions. I got tired of answering questions, so I started writing articles explaining Bitcoin, blockchain, what can be done on smart contracts. And then, after a handful of articles, I realized, I'm spending so much time on this, and I'm not getting paid for any of it, and it's time to make a change with that. So I sent out an application for jobs in cryptocurrency, and at that point, now you take a look on LinkedIn and you see crypto-related jobs all over the place. Back then, there was maybe 5 to 10 jobs listed on Indeed and LinkedIn, and so I found one startup out in Denver that was hiring for research analysts. Sent an application, had an interview. 2 weeks later, I'm in Denver working for this little startup.
Wow. So from Michigan, sort of stumbled across it, ended up in Denver as a crypto analyst. Well, I think that story is somewhat familiar to a lot of folks that get exposed to it early on. They sort of had denial about it, and then all of a sudden, boom, they commit to it. It was similar for me. Well, that's interesting. So one of the things that is noteworthy about Bitcoin in particular is this thing called the halving. And so what I've discovered in my crypto journey, if you will, is that there are a lot of technical analysts in particular who like it because there appears to be a recurring cycle, not just in Bitcoin, but in the broader crypto market in general. So tell us about halving. What is the halving and how that seems to generate cycles every some number of years?
Yeah, so when I first found out about crypto, I did not know anything about any of this, right? It wasn't important to me at the time. However, when I got out to Denver, my job was to look up all sorts of different metrics that investors could use to their benefit to make good trades. And, one thing that our clients really wanted to learn about was the halving, which is an event that cuts in half the issuance rate of Bitcoins that are mined on each block. And this comes about every 4 years. This is pre-programmed into Bitcoin's code. And every 4 years, the issuance rate is cut in half. So we're actually a couple of days away from a halving right now where the rate will go from 6.25 Bitcoin per block, cut in half to 3.125 Bitcoin per block. And of course, that affects miners, that affects the incoming supply to exchanges and order book depth.
And when you say miners, again, just bear in mind some of the audience is less familiar than others. So what exactly is mining Bitcoin? Tell us a little bit about that.
Let me take a step back there. So in order to keep up the Bitcoin network, the network runs nodes, which are, anybody can run a node.
Right.
So that is just
because it's internet based.
Yes, anybody can spin up a node, and what you're doing there is you're supporting the network by checking transactions, aggregating transactions, verifying transactions.
Right, on the blockchain.
On the blockchain, and you're sending that data off to other nodes.
Right.
A miner is technically a type of node. However, a miner is aggregating these transactions and also computing the hashing algorithm, which secures the Bitcoin network.
Right. And that's the cryptographic puzzle, I think is how they describe it, that basically solves the transaction.
It's like solving a math problem. It's the way I've been told and the way I've kind of always thought about it is you're essentially solving a math problem. And it's a race to solve this math problem.
Right.
And so these miners do two things. They try to solve the hashing algorithm, and they also are compiling transactions.
Right.
So they get paid in two ways. Whoever wins the race to solve the hashing algorithm of the next block gets paid the block reward, which, as I said, is currently 6.25, going down to 3.125 Bitcoin per block.
Right.
A block is mined about every 10 minutes. And when a miner wins the raise to this block,
Yeah.
they can also add in an aggregation of transactions, and they will then also get paid the transaction fee for those transactions. Right. So I'm a miner. I win the race to win the block. I immediately get the block reward, and also any fees from the transactions that I put into this next block.
Right.
It's a bit complicated. That's an oversimplification of what's going on.
Sure.
But that is the block reward. The halving, as I said, is cutting that issuance rate in half. It takes place every 4 years. This is pre-coded into the algorithm so that the issuance rate decreases over time as we get closer and closer to 21 million Bitcoin.
And that's the ceiling, right?
And
so
that is a hard-coded ceiling, which we will hit around the year 2140.
Right. So there's only 21 million Bitcoin
That will ever have existed.
Right. So it's not like a central bank. It's not like the Fed, which can generate ungodly amounts of money at a whim on some kind of computer screen and dump assets into the banking system.
And it's not
Bitcoin
like gold.
cannot do that. Right, and it's not like gold.
We know exactly how much Bitcoin will be
Right.
in existence. Gold is rare, right? But we don't know exactly how rare. We know exactly how rare Bitcoin is. We know how much Bitcoin will exist today, yesterday, 5 years from now, and 100 years from now.
So when this halving occurs, what happens to the markets generally? Not just Bitcoin, but the whole crypto market.
So let me get to this in a second. Let me wind us back to our previous question, and I will run into what I expect, what has happened around the halvings, and what I expect to happen this time around. As I said, the halving occurs every 4 years.
Yep.
And that means that there is a pre-coded change to Bitcoin supply every 4 years, which allows people to look out into the future and see what's going on. And it coincides with the cyclicality of the crypto markets. I would argue that every market is cyclical.
Right.
The only thing that changes is the period of the cycle.
Right.
And crypto is a very fast-moving market. It trades 24/7, 365. It's nascent. We're still absolutely in price discovery mode all the time.
Yeah. Meaning we don't really know its true value. We just don't know how to evaluate.
We're figuring out Bitcoin's true value, and of course, I would argue that Bitcoin's true value operates on network effects, and the network is changing all the time, right? So the actual value of Bitcoin is changing, growing over time via Metcalfe's law.
Right.
So, yes, we're constantly figuring out the price of Bitcoin, which means traders are moving all over trying to figure out how to value it. This in turn kind of creates cyclicality to the market.
Yep.
And the cycles are fast moving. And in Bitcoin, it tends to time up to about 4-year cycles.
Yeah.
Via Bitcoin as well as the broader crypto market.
Yeah.
You could say that that ties in perfectly with the halving, or one may cause the other. I don't really know. I'm not concerned with the answer to that question, to be honest.
Sure.
But there's a 4-year cyclicality to the market. And the way I noticed this when I was in Denver working at that startup, but really I kind of hammered this home in one of my previous positions where I was working with a colleague of ours, Juan Villaverde, who is a cycles master and really has like
we'll have him on the show.
A very specific thesis towards the 4-year cycle theory. Suffice to say, I operate all of my trading strategies and investing strategies operate around this 4-year cycle, and I tend to focus specifically on momentum swing trades based around this 4-year cycle. I will buy when prices are low but have started recovering, and ride those positions out until we get towards the bull market top, which tends to happen every 4 years.
Right.
And currently, we have just finished, 2022 was a bear market year. That was an entire year of downside price action, really brutal for everybody that was sitting in the market.
And that coincided with Bitcoin. I think it started in the 50s, something like that, close to 60K, and it dropped all the way down to what, 17, 15, something like that?
Yeah, right around $16,000. This is 2022 had the collapse of the UST, Terra, Luna
Right.
ecosystem, which
Sam
had
Bankman-Fried.
a ton of money locked up,
Yeah,
which led to the downfall of Three Arrows Capital and a bunch of other centralized institutions,
right.
and eventually led to the collapse of FTX via Sam Bankman-Fried fraud. Sam Bankman-Fried's fraud.
Yes.
Sorry, you tend to mix that name up a little bit.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, he's given crypto a really bad name, as we know. But it
Yes.
seems as though we've recovered from that market event.
Well, we recovered from that event in 2023.
Yeah.
So 2023 was a neutral year in crypto markets, to maybe your shock, where we saw Bitcoin go from about $16,000 to $20,000.
Yes.
All the way up to, I want to say, we ended 2023 at around 40,000, something like that.
Now, it's interesting to me that Bitcoin gets most of the attention, but there's a lot of other coins. There's a lot of other tokens. There's a lot of other protocols, as they call them in crypto. Tell us a little bit more about that. I mean, tell us more about Ethereum and why is it that Bitcoin's halving cycle seems to pull the rest of the market along with it? Why do you think that is?
Well, for a long time, Bitcoin was the market.
Yes.
There was nothing else other than Bitcoin. Then other coins were introduced to the market, which have basically all petered out at this point.
Well, not all. Some are still with us, right?
Sure. To a much lesser degree, some of the I'm talking about the market back in 2013, 14.
Mm-hmm.
Ethereum came about in 2015,
Right.
and then caught fire, of course, and Ethereum's still around now. It's the number 2 cryptocurrency. However, back in 2012, 13, 14, there were other cryptocurrencies, but they're now essentially valueless.
Mm-hmm.
There are a few that are still around, but of course they're not anywhere near as big as they were back in that day.
Right.
Bitcoin has been the heart of the market for its entire history.
Yeah.
Now it's a market leader. Of course, what's going on right now in this current cycle, 2024, which is the start of the bull market according to the 4-year cycle theory, 2024 and 2025 should be our bull market. What has really kicked off here at the start of 2024 is the approval of these spot Bitcoin ETFs.
Right.
And that is pumping the number 1 cryptocurrency, which means the entire crypto market's going to rise on this newfound attention to the space. Bitcoin's just a leader. It's the heart of the market. It drives everything. It does not mean that it is the only cryptocurrency. There's plenty of other altcoin projects that have sprung about really since 2016, 17 is when the market kind of changed a little bit.
Yeah. And just to be clear, altcoin means anything other than Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Pretty much, right?
It's a loose definition, I would say. You can call Ethereum an altcoin at this point, and you kind of call it something. It might not be an altcoin, depends.
Okay.
It doesn't matter particularly, but...
Well, can you tell us why you own Ethereum, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Why own Ethereum? I mean, you made a pretty good play for Bitcoin. It moves the market. It's got the halving and so forth. Why own anything else? And specifically Ethereum?
Yes, because as I was trying to say, in around 2016, 2017, everything really changed. It went from, the market evolved from just payment coins like Bitcoin. Bitcoin is essentially a store of value or a form of currency.
Right.
Many of the early cryptocurrencies were just that. They were forms of payment, they were types of currency, we had privacy tokens, but they were all really centered around peer-to-peer payments. Ethereum comes about in 2015. I don't think the market understood what Ethereum was back then. I don't think the market really truly understood what Ethereum, I don't think it even understood the potential of Ethereum really until late in 2017.
Right.
When you hit the ICO craze. So that's when the market kind of takes a different turn.
And an ICO is?
Initial coin offering, it's kind of like an IPO for crypto.
Okay.
It's not really a thing anymore. But these ICOs introduced a lot of different projects, right? So this was essentially a way for a project to raise funding by incorporating a token into its business model, right? So what this essentially equated to was a new form of funding for tech startups.
Right.
As long as the tech startup made cryptocurrency a core component of its model.
Right.
And so, in my opinion, what was birthed out of that 2017 ICO craze was essentially a new tech sector, which
Right.
is now a subcomponent of the larger crypto market,
Right.
of which Ethereum is the base layer.
Okay.
And so this is really
Meaning it's sort of like a platform.
it is the platform at which those tokens launch their ICOs.
Yeah.
It's the base blockchain on which these projects run, right? So, nowadays you have projects will launch with their own blockchain, but those blockchains are layer 2s or side chains of Ethereum,
Right.
right? Which means they're inheriting Ethereum's infrastructure and security, but they're using Ethereum's blockchain, and which means that they have to use the ETH token as gas.
Right. So the way it was described to me when I was first exposed to Ethereum is that it's sort of a decentralized computer, and or decentralized internet, if you will. And so on top of that platform, you get what are called dApps, decentralized applications. You can have smart contracts. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about smart contracts. But either way, you think that Ethereum is just as important to invest in as Bitcoin.
Absolutely. In a different way,
Yeah.
really. I think you have to kind of look at them as two different investments. Bitcoin right now is, the way I approach my Bitcoin investment is more as a store of value, a hedge against inflation,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the main components of my investment there is just the overall adoption curve of Bitcoin.
Right.
It's now being, like I just said, there's a spot Bitcoin ETF introduced by Wall Street at this point.
Right.
I believe it's about to become a core component of sovereign wealth funds, pension funds.
Right.
I think it's about to be mass adopted by many people with their retirement accounts. There's other and similar to how people invest in gold, right?
Right.
So store of value is really the way I'm looking at Bitcoin right now. Ethereum, on the other hand, is kind of like a tech investment, but you're investing in the underlying layer. It's almost as if you could invest in the internet.
Right. Right.
In 1999.
Right.
There's going to be a hell of a lot of volatility in Ethereum and in the crypto market in general. But you're investing in something that's coming down the line.
Yeah. Makes sense. Is there anything else that stands out in your mind other than Bitcoin and Ethereum that people should pay attention to? Other cryptocurrencies, other plays that you see right now that are very lucrative?
100%. I could sit here for hours talking about other.
Well, maybe just give us the most lucrative play that you're looking at right now.
Yeah. So, as I said, Ethereum has kind of introduced a whole new tech subsector to the crypto market, which means there's a lot of different variations of these tech projects. One that's very hot right now in traditional markets is also very hot in the crypto market, and that's AI.
Mm-hmm.
So ever since ChatGPT rolled out in early 2023, AI kind of caught on fire. I started using ChatGPT almost daily.
Right.
AI became part of our daily language.
Mm-hmm.
And that obviously meant that investments in tech and AI in the traditional market exploded. Same thing has happened in crypto. Anything related to AI is gaining a lot of exposure. There's a project called Render, which uses AI for visual rendering. It's a very interesting project.
Now, how does that
investment has done extremely well over the last
How does
6
that
months.
overlap with crypto? More specifically. would
Well, some projects, it varies project to project, right?
Okay.
So, like, there's another project. It's called Akash. It is a decentralized cloud computing project.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I would call AI adjacent,
Okay.
in the sense that AIs need a ton of computing power. So this is like an adjacent play. They're going to need to use Akash's cloud computing.
Okay.
Why why invest in crypto AI over traditional AI? I think is kind of what you're trying to get to a little bit. I can't give you a reason why it makes any more sense to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just investors are going to seek out alpha wherever they can.
I see.
And crypto is one of those markets where they're going to try to invest in AI projects.
I see.
If you think that crypto is the future of the internet, or that crypto is developing Web 3.0, it makes a lot of sense why you would want to have AI projects
Right.
that are crypto native.
Okay,
Right?
that makes sense. Well, I think what is concerning to a lot of people and to others, they see it as an opportunity, is the overlap and the intersection of crypto and traditional markets, or the New York Stock Exchange, for example. So it's interesting you mentioned that in 2023, crypto and Bitcoin specifically took off like a rocket. I remember it well. It seemed to coincide with the banking issues that started in March of 2023 when Silicon Valley Bank went down, which is something I've talked about on this channel a lot. So how do you see crypto interacting with, responding to what, say, the NASDAQ does, or how the banking system is performing? Do you think it's a self-contained space, or do you think it's reacting to what's happening in financial markets in a general sense?
Yeah, so the crypto market absolutely reacts to what's going on in macro and geopolitics.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually tends to time up with the cycles, almost in like a magical way.
Interesting.
It's a little interesting how it happens.
Yeah.
Right around when you would expect the 4-year cycle low to take place,
Yes.
was when FTX exploded,
Right.
or imploded.
Right.
So these things time up in like very strange ways. So to get to what you're saying, at the end of 2022, you had the crypto market that seemed like it had bottomed out,
Yep.
and then all of a sudden FTX implodes, and you get Bitcoin shooting all the way
The
down
final
to
leg
16,000.
down, yeah.
The final leg down, which surprised a ton of people.
Yes.
So you get that.
Less so me, I'd like to point out.
That
But
well, yes, well
its
that
meteoric
changed.
recovery certainly surprised me.
That
in
changed
2023, but
sentiment. So sentiment at that before FTX
yeah,
was that, wow, we had sunk a lot lower than we thought.
yeah,
This has got to be the bottom.
yeah,
Then you have a massive fraud in FTX,
right,
and sentiment went as bearish as I've ever seen it in the crypto market. It was shocking, actually, the day that FTX is imploding. And so a couple days after the FTX implosion, Juan and I looked at each other and said, well, I've never seen sentiment this bearish. This has got to be the bottom.
yeah,
And we timed it to the day. Sentiment is a really good indicator of what's going on in the market. We recovered slowly, but again, I'm talking about Bitcoin price-wise and sentiment-wise is recovering from one of the lowest points I've ever seen in crypto
Sure.
sentiment.
Because you've seen what, three cycles?
This is my third cycle now. Yeah,
Yeah.
and to be honest, it's not one of that was the lowest point
Yeah.
in the crypto market that I've ever seen,
Yeah,
sentiment-wise. So it's recovering from that. And so Bitcoin did have, I think it gained 100% year over year in 2023.
yeah.
Or right around 100%.
But do you think that was equally bolstered by what was happening in broader markets?
Yes. So there's going to be a natural recovery from
Sure.
what is the all-time low in sentiment, right?
Right.
But then we get into springtime of 2023 when you have the banking crisis. And what I think happened is people realized we've been writing off crypto a little bit too much. We sent it a little too low. They start to realize that the immutability of crypto is drastically, direly needed.
Right.
They
So you're
see
saying
what-
the baby boomer institutions figured out that these weren't just shit coins after all. It wasn't just a giant Ponzi scheme.
Well, that came after the fact, I think.
Right.
So I think what first you're seeing is most likely Gen X tech founders realizing, holy shit, we should not have been keeping anywhere near as much money locked up in these crazy West Coast banks.
Right.
Maybe, I shouldn't be taking loans on my tech shares.
Right. Right.
So I think there was a lot of stuff going on there.
Yeah.
Not necessarily related to crypto, but these are people that did have knowledge about crypto. They most likely did have crypto investments.
Yeah.
I think that is pretty important. Also, these banks did business with crypto projects. They lent out to crypto founders. So like there was an overlap there.
Yeah.
And again, this is coming, I want to say the small banking crisis was a few months after the Canadian trucker strike.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
So what you're seeing in this time globally was kind of a distrust in governments and banks specifically.
Right.
As Justin Trudeau shut off the banking access for anybody in the trucker convoy or anybody that had donated to the truckers.
Yeah, that was an orange pill moment. It
was kind of crazy. Orange pilled some people didn't get it at that point.
Yeah.
And then you see what's going on in the small banks, the regional banks over in California.
Right.
And again, I think it's just a slow realization for the masses that we have given a lot of our financial power to third parties, and these third parties can't really be trusted.
Yeah.
And then you realize there is an alternative where you don't give up trust, you don't give up power, you hold your own keys, your own power to financially, to transact freely with your finances.
So let's talk about trust for a minute, because there was a study, I think it was, or a survey rather, was put out in 2020 by Fidelity, and it was pretty conclusive. If you're under 40, you're bullish on crypto, you understand it, you think we need a new monetary system. If you're over 40, and I just turned 40, Alex, but at the time I wasn't, I was 36. What do you think about the generational adoption? Because part of the problem here, and it bedevils the Bitcoin community to no end, is that the baby boomers have all the money and we're broke, right? They represent about $55 trillion in assets. We're 5, okay? So it's great that we think crypto is the future, that we like Bitcoin and potentially some of the others, but the older generation still doesn't seem to really grasp it. And to the extent that they do, they seem to go into an ETF, an exchange traded fund, which is kind of different from what crypto adoption should be, right? Because they're buying it through a third party instead of buying it directly. So what are your thoughts on where we are in the broader generational adoption of crypto? Do you think the old people are figuring it out, is another way of putting the question?
They won't figure it out. The majority of them won't figure it out.
Okay.
And it doesn't matter.
Okay.
And don't downplay the significance of these ETFs and the boomer adoption that will come from that. I would go as far as to say most boomers don't know shit about finances in general. They have a financial advisor.
Right.
Do you have a financial advisor?
I do not.
I do not either.
Yeah.
Why the hell would I want somebody else investing on my behalf?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a boomer thing.
Right.
Boomers.
Well, it's trust. It's trust, right?
Yeah,
they trust a third party.
I don't trust anything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to my finances.
Yeah.
So I don't think boomers are ever going to get to the point that we're at. They're just never going to get it like we do.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter because their financial advisor is now looking at his ETF offerings. Where's the first place he typically wants to invest? What companies do these guys trust?
All the big blue chip companies.
Big blue chip. Is
Apple,
BlackRock a big blue
Microsoft.
chip company? I don't remember.
Yeah, I think so.
It
Might
is.
be.
Yeah. So, all right, take a look at the ETFs through BlackRock. Oh, what's this? Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, well, maybe I'll allocate a few percent there. Paul Tudor Jones said maybe 5 to 10% for somebody 55 and up.
Right.
Interesting. Yeah, that's how it's going to go. And again, we are now 4 months. We're only 4 months into these ETFs that have launched.
Right.
And I'm talking about BlackRock, Franklin Templeton, Fidelity, Vanguard? No?
Yeah.
Vanguard? Maybe? I don't know. A lot of these guys have rolled them out. We're 4 months in. That number is going to grow.
Yeah.
The number of financial advisors that invest in these is going to grow.
Yeah.
And don't forget that Wall Street moves at a snail's pace compared to crypto.
Yes. Yeah.
So companies, banks, large institutions, when they want to invest in something, first of all, it's typically some low-level analyst comes up with a theory, an investment theory. They got to pitch it up to finance has all these weird terms and titles.
Yeah,
who's above an analyst? Like an associate, right? So he's got to pitch it to his associate.
Right.
That guy's got to go up. Eventually, gets to a VP. VP sends it somewhere up.
Yeah.
Now, this takes weeks. Then you have to make sure that it's regulatory compliant to invest in this. You
Yeah.
have to get approval internally.
Yeah.
And then when you finally get the approval internally and it matches the regulation, now you have to sell it to clients.
Yeah.
I mean, this stuff takes time. Wall
Yeah.
Street moves slow.
Yeah, so on my channel, we refer to it, or I refer to it as the gerontocracy, rule of old.
Yeah.
And the case that I've tried to make since the inception of my YouTube channel and all the writing is that the old guard is really incompetent. They really don't know what's going on, and they're being overwhelmed by changes across the board. That being said, though, one thing I would mention to you is that I'm actually more bullish on Bitcoin adoption in particular, because I think that trust, even among boomers, stands a very good chance of collapsing in the near term because of what's happening in the Middle East, because of what's happening in the banking system, because of political instability in the United States and other countries in Europe. So if we see further escalation in the Middle East, if we see a continuation of conflict with Russia and China, how do you see those events affecting crypto adoption? And I should say, just for some context, so Alex and I are in Cartagena. People down here that I speak to are rather bullish. They're enthusiastic about crypto and Bitcoin in particular. We know that El Salvador has already adopted it.
Yeah.
So given what's happening geopolitically in the world, the rise of the BRICS, these wars that appear to be getting worse, how do you think that's going to stimulate adoption globally and especially in Latin America?
Yeah, well, Latin America in general is probably one of the most bullish on crypto regions that I have seen.
Yeah.
They use it all the time. They're happy about it. They want to get paid in crypto, Bitcoin specifically. I would partition that off from what's going on in BRICS.
Yeah.
It's a bit different. So you got to look at adoption at a societal level and then adoption on governmental levels.
Right.
Two different things.
Right.
How will BRICS use crypto? Let me address that real quick. I don't know. I don't think anybody can know
Yeah.
whether or not BRICS. I think that there's a potential that BRICS could adopt the use of Bitcoin to a degree. You know, whether or not that means that's the currency I trade in, I don't necessarily think so. I think there's a chance, and it's been rumored around, that they will adopt some sort of currency of their own, or
Right.
some sort of pairing of currencies.
Gold. Yeah.
Yeah, that's based on gold. I think that, you know, if they do introduce a currency based on a gold reserve, that they might also, you know, back it a little bit with Bitcoin as well. That's kind of the way I would think of it. I
Interesting.
think that's the future. If there is a future of fiat, if there's a next evolution of fiat,
Yeah.
I believe that it reverts back to backing by gold with the introduction of also having Bitcoin reserves. I don't want to, I don't really even know how much I believe that future of fiat will work.
Yeah.
That seems like a logical next destination for where
Yes.
our fiat lords would want to go.
Right. Well, banks are buying gold. We know that. And
I
there's-
expect them to start buying Bitcoin. This is the thing.
Yeah.
I expect Bitcoin to be used in institutional reserves.
Yeah.
And not long after, I expect it to be used as reserves for countries
Right.
and
Right.
governments. So we've seen it to a small degree with El Salvador.
Yep.
We've seen institutional Bitcoin reserves to a small degree with MicroStrategy, Tesla, and a few others.
Right.
It has worked very well for both El Salvador and those institutions.
Right.
So and again, this happens every bull market. Every 4 years, you kind of see this adoption. I remember when El Salvador rolled out. I remember when Michael Saylor started to back MicroStrategy with Bitcoin. I think you'll probably see it again in this cycle. You'll see some more adoption at the country level,
Yeah.
and then some more adoption at the institutional level. I don't think that either of those is what hits or what gets cryptocurrency to its mainstream adoption point.
Right.
To be honest, I think it's progress, but not anything that's sweeping.
Right.
You mentioned you mentioned that there's a possibility that boomers may be losing trust in government institutions.
Yes.
And then where do they put that trust? Are the consequences of losing that trust? There is a possibility that boomers come around to Bitcoin and crypto and realize that, you know, operating or having their finances and operate in a trustless manner is a better option. I think if that were to happen, we hit the point of mass adoption
Yeah.
far quicker than anybody thinks.
Yeah, that's what I think is going to happen.
I think this is one of these points where we slightly disagree on a little bit. I don't think that's going to happen too soon. I don't think that we're like months or even a couple of years away from that. I think that point is a little further down the line.
Right.
I think we're going to continue moving at about the pace, maybe a little faster than we have been the last 4 years.
So given all that, Alex, where do you see how do you see the markets over the next 90 days? Not just crypto, but stocks, bonds, all of it, the global financial system and the global economy. How do you see markets unfolding over the next 90 days, and what do you see over the next 12 months?
Yeah, so we're a few days removed from the escalation in the Iran-Israel conflict.
Yep.
Bitcoin and the crypto market took an immediate dive after that.
Yep.
I think I took a look at the S&P, and S&P also took a bit of a hit, nothing crazy, and it's taking a dive off of all-time highs that were set a few weeks ago. So we haven't really seen much of anything with consequence.
Yeah.
Markets interact strangely during wartime. You don't never really know what's going to take a hit and what's going to be bolstered. It's strange. I think the crypto market specifically took a dive as people searched for liquidity real quick, and maybe in a panic after what was going on. It was the only market that's open on Saturday, which is when the conflict took place.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried there. That's normal. It's normal behavior. Again, it times up with the internal market cycles, and more importantly, Bitcoin did not break below a support level.
Right.
It held at the same level that it had.
Was that about 62,000,
62,000, right around
62,000, yeah.
Yeah, so there was already support around that level. Bitcoin held the support. Everything's fine. Unless that support breaks, I don't think that there's immediate panic in either Bitcoin or the traditional market coming up. Of course, that could break and we could see further downside.
Yeah.
Now, if we're entering World War III, I tend to think, there's a higher chance that support's going to break and then we're going to see further panic.
Yeah.
I'm not Nostradamus. I can't tell you what's going to happen.
Well, it is noteworthy because a lot of Bitcoin folks seem to suggest that Bitcoin is analogous to gold, and gold is at all-time highs and moving higher quickly. So it appears as though Bitcoin has moved in lockstep with the broader financial markets, which have sold off over the last week or so. So again, what do you think that you're going to see a continuation of correlation between, say, Bitcoin and crypto with the NASDAQ or other stock market indices going forward? Or do you see a divergence in the near term?
So going back to my time working as that analyst at the crypto data company, one of the things that we looked at a lot and that was requested by our financial institution clients was correlations, and specifically correlations to the S&P, to the NASDAQ and tech stocks, and correlations to gold.
Right.
And what we found is that at times Bitcoin was correlated to NASDAQ, at other times Bitcoin was correlated to gold. And when you make a conclusion based off of that data, you realize that Bitcoin and the crypto market is not actually correlated to any of those things.
Right.
Correlations move about. Right?
Yeah.
So it's not going to be correlated to either of those things for a long period of time. It will move lockstep depending on the narrative.
Right.
So when the narrative is, when the stock market is doing well, specifically tech stocks, people are investing in risk assets.
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin and crypto are risk assets. So when the NASDAQ is pumping, Bitcoin tends to pump. In times of panic, gold tends to do well. People look for stores of value. Bitcoin tends to do well in those times. And I'm not going to, all coins, it's a little bit less of a correlation, but Bitcoin tends to do well when people are seeking stores of value. In the immediate aftermath of an event, a scary event that causes panic, Bitcoin does not do well. Why does it not do well? Because unlike gold, unlike stocks, Bitcoin is extremely liquid. It is it takes me minutes.
So there's lots of trading going on.
There's it's an extremely liquid market. You can
Right.
withdraw your money, you can sell your crypto and withdraw your money in very little time compared to other assets.
Yeah. So what I've heard is it's almost an early warning or an indicator of sentiment shift because of that liquidity.
Absolutely. So that's why I'm saying over the weekend when Bitcoin took the dive to 62,000, it was an obvious sign that on Monday markets were not going to do well.
Right.
However, Bitcoin held that $62,000 support. Had it dipped further than that and gone into a real panic, that's when I would have been sounding the red alarm that everything is in trouble.
Right. Do you think that could happen in the next 90 days?
That's a possibility. Yeah. I think.
What would you?
I think you could also see right now, if you look at the crypto market specifically, Bitcoin dominance is very high. Which Bitcoin dominance measures the total market share of Bitcoin versus the total market share of altcoins.
Right.
Altcoins being the riskier assets tend to do really well in a crypto bull market when people are seeking that next, the next escalation, the next alpha that they can get, the next investment that's going to 10x. That's when altcoins really rise.
Right.
Bitcoin dominance tends to do well in the times when people are looking for stores of value. Bitcoin dominance is up now because of these ETFs. But should people be looking towards a store of value, you could see an even further escalation in Bitcoin dominance.
Right.
That would kind of go against the typical internal market cycles that you see in a crypto bull market.
Yeah.
So I'm not expecting that, but it is something to keep an eye on.
Got it.
If you're worried about this, you want to keep a look on Bitcoin dominance. That said, I think there is a pretty good possibility that this Bitcoin cycle is a little different than we've seen in the past.
Yeah, for sure.
Because there's a lot going on in the world.
Yeah. Well, I call it end of cycle. We're in that transitional phase, and I think Bitcoin's a big part of it. So it sounds to me like what you're saying is next 90 days, volatile, up and down, unpredictable, but Bitcoin's structural foundation seems strong. Going forward, however, you see a very bullish future over the next year and beyond, right?
Yeah, so I would say, I would generalize what you just said by saying, in the short term, I expect volatility.
Right.
And a little bit of, figuring out, are we bullish, are we bearish, are we neutral, what's going on?
Right.
Should conflict escalate, I expect that to extend out to a longer period of, volatility, neutrality, bearishness to the market. So let's just say after an event of panic, right? Like we just saw with the escalation in Israel and Iran, you see short-term dips in the crypto market. If we were going to go into World War III, that's a much larger conflict.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're going to see a much larger reaction in the market.
Sure.
So if that were to happen, I don't know. We could be looking at a year or so, maybe even longer than a year, of Bitcoin figuring out what the hell's going on.
I see, yeah.
Now, over the next 5 years, without going into World War III, over the next year, very bullish. Over the next 5 years, no matter what happens, very bullish.
Yeah.
This is growing. This is the future. Bitcoin is the future of money, right? So I expect to see further adoption via these ETFs, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, personal retirement accounts, and just overall use of Bitcoin, especially in countries like Latin America, Africa, and Asia.
Yeah.
I expect further adoption of that. That adoption tends to grow in an S-curve. I think we're getting closer and closer to that inflection point in the S-curve.
Yep.
I think it could happen.
The S-curve is the adoption curve.
The S-curve of adoption.
Yeah.
I think it could happen, honestly, as early as this cycle.
Right.
So in the next 2 years, potentially, we could hit the point of inflection on that S-curve of adoption. I think almost guaranteed we hit it within the next 6, right? So it's either this cycle or the next cycle.
Right.
I think it's almost a sure thing that we hit that point of inflection.
Got it.
So at some point, we're going to get a massive increase in prices of crypto, in the adoption of crypto, in the acceptance of crypto, the prevalence of crypto. I think you're going to see it go from, I think right now 10% of Americans own crypto, which means we're not about to hit the point of inflection just yet, but at some point you're going to see the number go from about 25 to 75, in what appears to be a blink of an eye.
Okay, well, I really appreciate the insight today. You've given us a lot to think about. You know, we live in crazy times, as we know. I frame it as an end of cycle transition. Tell the folks where they can find your stuff, what you're working on, and how they can follow you.
Yeah, so right now I'm working with a company called Investing Daily. So you can find my typical regular articles there at investingdaily.com. I'm also launching a premium service with them, which is launching right now this week, actually. So that's investingdaily.com. You can find me on Twitter as well, at cryptobenfield. And yeah, please follow my work. I'm putting out regular articles and videos all the time.
Great. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. There's going to be more content like this to come, so stay tuned for more, and we'll talk soon.